Let's understand modules in JavaScript. First of all, if you use index.html to link your JavaScript file, you will have to say that this script tag has a type module to really declare this as a module. And if you want to have the shortcut, this is pretty simple. You're just going to say script::module. So you automatically define this one as a module, and then you can link your index.js file. And we also need the def attribute here to say this one will be parsed after the entire HTML code. Now inside of our index.js file, this one here is now declared as a module, so we can use this one as a module. So imagine we want to have a function and we want to get this function from another file, for example. So let's say this are helper functions, for example. So this one is the helper.js file. And this one just declares a function that says, say hello, for example, and it's just going to console.log hello in the console. So this is pretty simple. But now we want to use this function instead of this file, for example. So how can we do it? Can we, for example, say import helper? This does not seem to work. So we have to export this function from our helper.js to use it inside of our index.js. To export a function, we can say export function, say hello. Now this function is being exported, and now we can import, say hello from helper. And as you can see, this is the syntax. So you have opening and closing brackets. Then you have the function name inside. You're going to say from what kind of space do you want to import that one? We want to import that one from ./helper. And I recommend to say .js right here. Otherwise, I oftentimes get bugs. And then you can use this function right here. So you can now, for example, say hello. You can call the function right here. So if I'm running this code, you say we're getting an error. And the reason is that I'm executing that one using Node.js, as you can see. And Node.js does not really see that this here is declared as a module by using HTML. So I have to execute this code inside of HTML. I'm going to reload the page, and right here you can see that we're getting hello. So this seems to work. So we have now used this function instead of our index.js file that has been exported from our helper.js file. And now we could also export a lot of functions inside of this file. So we could also say goodbye. That function is just going to console.log by, for example, doesn't really matter too much. And now we can also say we want to export that function right here. And now we can say goodbye, for example. We also want to call that function. We want to execute that function right here. And this now works as well. So now we're getting hello and bye. So this works. But now we can also export something as a default. So we could, instead of saying export function, say goodbye, we could go down and we could say right here, for example, export default, say goodbye. Now we're going to save that one. And now we can, instead of importing like that, we can say import, say goodbye. And as you can see now, the syntax is slightly different. Instead of using those brackets right here, we're just going to say that we are going to import say goodbye from helper.js without the brackets. And now we can still call it the same way. We can refresh our code and we will get the exact same result. The reason is that now this here is a default export. The reason we do not need brackets here is because we cannot have many default exports right here. So this is not valid. If this would be another function, this would not work. You can only have one single default export for every single file, but you can have as many normal exports per file. So by using this syntax, you can essentially import as many functions as you want. If you do this syntax, you can just import one main function from every single file that you have exported as a default, essentially. So to sum up, if you want to use import and export, you have to declare it as a module. In a lot of frameworks, JavaScript files will by default under the hood be handled as a module. So if you can use import and export over there, this just means that the framework does the work for you of declaring this as a module. So if you ever work with a framework, which you potentially will, this is important to remember. Once it is declared as a module, you can use export to export function. You can use export default to export something as a default. And you can use import to import something. By using brackets, you are importing normal exports. By using import without brackets, you are importing a default export.